This is my review of Elden Ring Nightreign after playing for 300 hours. Hello, I am Darth Redness, and in today's video we're talking about Nightreign. First and foremost, I want to mention that this game's retail price is $39.99. It is significantly less expensive than the list price of most mainstream games, some of which are upwards to $70 or $80 now. I would also like to state that I have played a lot of Elden Ring when it first came out and whenever the DLC was released. So going into Nightreign, I already had the expectation to at least like the combat since I was already pretty familiar with that. Enough with the preface formalities. Let's dive into it. Elden Ring Nightreign is From Software's newest release. It is a roguelike set in an alternate universe to Elden Ring, which allowed for them to alter the map design and add in random bosses and layouts. Also, they got to bring in some IPs from other titles without contradicting the original title. This is my first roguelike game, but I have been told that it is one of the less roguelikes out there, as it has less customization and fewer random aspects and expeditions than other games. There are 8 characters to choose from in Nightreign, each with their own unique passive, ability, and ultimate art moves. They also each have different dodges with varying iframes, and different stats, meaning they won't all be after the same weapon if you're looking for optimal scaling. This is great because if you're someone who really only likes one style, you can just play that character over and over. Or if you want to change it up each and every run, you can do that too. Each character has a remembrance quest line to learn about that character and give you objectives in expedition. They're not overly complex, but do give some interesting backstory as well as some new chalices and relics throughout each story. This was a pleasant surprise for me. With the price being so low and the focus of the game being survive the night and kill the big bads, I didn't expect there to be storylines associated with the characters. They even went so far as to add alternate endings with the completion of 3 of the characters' remembrances. I was also impressed with the sparring grounds. The fact that you can test out your relics with whatever weapon, sorcery, incantation, ash of war, or consumable you want in order to make sure things are compatible with one another was a great feature. The relic system is Nightreign's character progression and customization system. As I mentioned before, you will get some specific guaranteed preset relics from the remembrances. You can also get some from the 2 shops and from your first completion of the Night Lords, along with random perk ones from the shops and after each expedition. This system is where many people lose interest in the game. The concept in itself is fine. Play games, get relics, customize your loadouts. However, the perks on the relics from the random ones are so random they do not necessarily pertain to the character you are currently playing, and there are perks out there that are useless, such as increased throwing knife damage. There is no way to customize the relic's perks, so you're just hoping that RNG blesses you with a good roll. Even after my 300 hours of playtime, I still use many guaranteed perk relics on my characters because of just how random the perks can be. I have a lot of really good ones for characters I haven't touched in a really long time, but I still use some 2 perk relics on my main character. The expedition map layout is somewhat random, but not as random as it could be. If you do not have a shifting earth event, the center location will always be the castle, and even if you do, the castle is still there on 3 out of 4 shifting earths. Also, the random raids and various other special events aren't entirely random, as they only seem to occur on a couple of Night Lords each. So if you haven't seen a specific one in a long time, or at all, it's because you're doing the wrong Night Lord. For example, I have never seen the Walking Mausoleum or the Special Sorcerer's Rise event with my playtime. It would also be nice if there were more center locations than just the one standard castle. It is nice that they changed the enemies in it, but having a completely different castle or something else entirely would be a welcome change. The shifting earths were a great way to spice up the runs, but they were entirely too random until they added the ability to force the activation with sovereign sigils. Overall though, I really enjoy running the matchmaking with randoms and not knowing if I'm going to get a standard map or a shifting earth map layout. Nightreign has a matchmaking system in which you can play co-op with 2 other players, either by pre-making a group of friends or random matchmaking, or a combination of the 2. Or you can just play solo. You can also play solo offline, but this will lose access to the Everdark Sovereign fights as they're online only. I have done a solid variety of the online methods. I have a couple of friends that I do runs with when they're on, but a lot of the time I'm just running the regular matchmaking with random, or doing solo runs. As I said earlier, I enjoy the matchmaking with randoms, as each run will not only be a different map, potentially, but the goals and the priorities of each run will also be different, keeping things interesting. There have been a lot of complaints about the matchmaking and the stability of the server, especially when it comes to remembrance questlines. I didn't have this issue, as I was lucky to have a couple of friends with to play early on, And then whenever they weren't on, I just did the Remembrances solo. I also haven't had very many disconnections, probably only a handful. So personally, I haven't had this much of an issue, but I do know these have been big issues for a lot of people. Nightreign does not have voice communication in the game. You would have to party up in another way if you wanted to communicate further than just using the in-game ping system. Personally, this doesn't bother me. Have there been times where I really wanted to be able to communicate to my teammates other than just the ping system? Of course. Like the one run when I didn't have enough runes for a smithing stone 1 at the end of day 3, so I ended up beating the Night Lord with the starting weapon at base level. Jumping up and down on the anvil and pinging the merchant wasn't enough to convey the message. But on the other hand, being able to just zone out and go with the flow and listen to music is a nice relaxing gameplay experience. If I had voice comms, would I use it? Yes. But do I think I have to have it added to enjoy the game? No, not at all. The World and Everjail bosses are a variety of Elden Ring bosses, with Night 1 and Night 2 bosses being a combination of Elden Ring and other From Software IPs. The Day 3 Night Lords, however, are entirely original work for Nightreign. I will not spoil any of the fights for you, but I will say that cinematically, there are some very beautiful fights. I feel like their difficulty seems very hard at first, but just like any boss, once you've learned their movesets over time and get used to the expedition pathing and optimize your characters, they're reasonable fights. That being said, there's currently no way to practice just the Night Lord. So that means you have to do a 35-ish minute run in order to even attempt the Night Lord. This is a large obstacle for many players, as not everyone can dedicate a long period of uninterrupted time to a game. There are many people that it took 20, 40, even 60 hours to beat their first Night Lord. At first I felt like the Night Lords were extremely challenging, but this was before I was hitting level 15 consistently and still getting used to the characters. After you really dig into the movesets, especially when both of your teammates are down or when you're playing solo, you start to really see more patterns and get used to the moves. For example, the Everdark Sovereign Gaping Jaw seemed absolutely impossible to me at first, but after learning the movesets over time, I can now beat it consistently without even dying, and I have done a no-hit run on it before. There have definitely been some growing pains with the game, but they have been patching things regularly. Winding Grace has been a regular nightmare in co-op, stating to have been fixed multiple times, but the glitches are still active. Sometimes it just won't activate and you'll get defeat, sometimes the bosses stop moving, you'll get a free win, and others, it'll just kick the people that don't have the winning grace and let you continue the fight. Another issue that is reported regularly that has happened a handful of times to me is when bosses and scarabs don't drop their loot. Last but not least is something that I personally encounter way more than any of the others. Not being able to crit a mob due to terrain. This happens in almost every single run. There are uneven spots where the boss will either have its crit spot underground or too high in the air, and I just won't be able to reach it. It's not something that's detrimental to the run, but it's just frustrating because of how often it happens. Others have mentioned issues with people duping items or injecting relic loadouts, some perks which aren't even available on relics in the game. I personally haven't come across these. From what I've read, most of the relic cheaters are on PlayStation as it's easier to mod on there. I play on PC. The Sentient Pest Everdark Sovereign fight also had a major bug that would not allow you to complete the fight if it happened. People were running into that all the way up until the end of the week, even though it had been stated it had been patched. Now it's been addressed again, so hopefully it is working properly. I only ran into it once in the 50 some odd run, so I was pretty lucky there. The camera and lock-on system are quite frustrating to say the least. There have been plenty of times that I've been trolled by the camera system and it just decides to unlock completely, or I'm trying to lock onto something right in front of me and it locks onto something 3 mobs deep. I have gotten pretty used to it, but it still trolls me pretty regularly. They recently added weapon types to the weapons so that you don't have to click an extra button to see what type of weapon it is. This is a great step in the right direction. I would still like to see them go further with this by adding the stat scaling of each weapon on there. This way you don't have to memorize every weapon in the game. Most are the same as they were in Elden Ring, but not everyone played Elden Ring, and some were modified for Nightreign. It would be a very convenient addition. Another area that needs work are the passives, both on weapon perks and the pool from the bosses. There are several that have specific requirements and are either not explained very well or incorrectly entirely. One example of this is the wielding 2 armaments passive. Will not work with bows, staves, shields, or steels, as it specifically means power stancing weapons that can be used with the L1 LB swing. Another good example of this is the blood loss while low HP is actually blood grease effect after a crit hit. It's also hard to tell what stacks and what doesn't without cross-referencing it with an external source or by repeatedly testing it in the game. In conclusion, do I recommend the game to everyone? No, probably not everyone. I do feel it is well worth the asking price of $39.99. If you have beaten any other From Software games and enjoyed them, it's definitely worth a shot. I'm currently trying to teach the ropes of the game to a friend, and it has been a challenge to explain everything while still progressing and maintaining my win streak. but that's part of the fun, as the win streak really doesn't mean anything other than an extra challenge. If you're someone who tends to play games on easy or story mode, Nightreign might not be for you, especially if it's your first From Software game. If that's the case, I might recommend the original Elden Ring first. That way, it's easier to practice the bosses, as you can fight most of them over and over and not have to do a crazy long run to get to them. There also is no pause button even in solo mode. I will also say that it is not out of the question for this to be your first From Software game. There have been plenty of people that have said that this is their first one and they are enjoying it thoroughly. So I wouldn't say let that deter you, but just keep in mind that it is a very fast-paced game and that you are not able to challenge the bosses over and over to learn their movesets. I would love to see Night Lord practice fights and unlimited time mode added to the game. These would allow for people to practice the final bosses without having to do a full run first, which is great for just really focusing in on the movesets, or if you don't have a lot of time. The unlimited time mode would allow for people to get comfortable with the various locations and shifting earth events without feeling rushed. I think a lot of players avoid these because they're just not comfortable with them yet, and they don't want to lose or cause their team to lose, which is a shame because they're a lot of fun and they're quite a bit different than the standard maps. Adding these options, even without giving any rewards to them, would be a huge win for the game. As for the relics, I don't think there's a need to change the whole system or add a whole lot to it, other than a better filter system and the ability to favorite and sell them at the end of expeditions and shops, instead of having to go to the relic right table each time. Passives definitely need to be updated to reflect accurate information and whether or not they stack. A lot of people want more costumes added to the game. I personally don't care about cosmetics at all. I simply unlocked everything because I'm a completionist, and after I got Darkness Last on everybody, I equipped it as kind of a checklist to say I was done with them. But it's never a bad thing to have more things to unlock. Another thing to note is having a destination with the weakness affinity of the boss is random. I make my builds so that I start with the affinity I need for the Night Lord, but not everyone has access to those yet, or wants to sacrifice a full relic slot for that. I don't think there's necessarily an easy fix for this, because even if they add guaranteed spots with those affinities on each map, you're not guaranteed to get a weapon for your character, but I don't think it would hurt to add a guaranteed chance though. Another aspect of raids that I would like addressed is the inconvenience of them. Like in the Augur raid, getting teleported back to where I was at day 2 start when I've already crossed the map and I'm climbing my way through Nakoteo. I've also had a Libra raid in a run where the storm was already moving in and it was outside where the circle was going to stop, plus I was extremely far from where it was. I was in the first 0.1% to 100% the game, but yet I'm still here playing, so clearly they did something right. Not everyone wants to have a full set of perfect relics, but I'm going to keep trying, at least for now. If I could just craft my perfect relics after a handful of runs, would I still be playing? Possibly, but not everyone would, since relics and win streaks and win percentages are really the only things to grind for after you've got the costumes. But personally, I definitely think that I got my money's worth out of the game. It can easily take 40 to 50 hours to 100% it, and that's if you win pretty regularly early on. For the price, I'd say that's a solid amount of gameplay, even if you don't decide to do a lot of grinding of the Night Lords after you've beaten them all. Thank you all for watching. Like, subscribe, and share to show your support, and I hope to see you out there in the world of Limveld.